Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, 1st of August, 2023. We're going to do some current market analysis. Before I do, just make sure you read the disclaimer. Trading's risky. You need to know what you're doing. Educate yourself before embarking on this. A little bit about myself. I've got plenty of webinars out there. You've heard me talk about my background. I've been doing it a long time and understand how markets work, and if I can pass that information on to you, that's all good. So the agenda for the next half an hour, 40 minutes is going to be some market analysis, any requests that you may have on charts that you're looking at. More than happy to give you my approach. I'm also going to do the same approach I do on all my webinars and all my trading. Actually, is the top-down approach, right down to smaller time frames to look for potential trading opportunities. I'm also going to show you how to look for trade setups in the Zenfinex Plus tool section, how to access it. And if there are any questions at the end, feel free to ask me. In fact, any questions you have during the webinar, please don't hesitate to ask. So the free tools, which we're going to cover a little bit this morning, is the Plus Zenfinex tools. They're absolutely free. There's no cost whatsoever. Just take a note of this URL, plus.zenfinex.com. Register for an account. It's absolutely free, and I'm going to show you some of the tools that are in that portal. The main two tools that I use, including the economic calendar, is the technical views and featured ideas. So I'm going to cover that. On the actual portal, there's lots of other videos on how to use the other tools, but these are my two favorite tools that I will show you how to use in a minute. And just to sort of go through the access again, please, it's absolutely free. I'm just waiting for a few more people to join. And I think we've got some people joining. So again, let's go have a quick look at news first, see what's coming up this week and today, and then we'll look at some analysis we did last week and see how we did. Did it achieve the levels that we want to achieve, and etc. So let's just go to today first, and then we'll look at the rest of the week. So it's Tuesday, 1st of August. And I'm going to get rid of the medium. I'm just focusing on the high impact news. If you want to look at all news coming up, it gives you a very detailed list, depending on which country you may be interested or which currency you may be interested in trading. But I'm just going to focus on the high impact. And, in about an hour, less than an hour, we've got some German news coming out, which will definitely affect the Eurodollar, the unemployment rate in Germany. So that'll have an impact. And also in Italy, 5 minutes later. So keep an eye out for the Euro around sort of 9 o'clock UK time. And by the way, these timings are based upon UK times. And then later on, we got ISM manufacturing PMI. Keep an eye out for that. That sometimes moves the markets around. Obviously, those of you trade news, this is a useful tool because you can look at how previous news affected price a short time after the news was announced. So we can go right from after the July news came out. Here's what happened in the first 15 minutes. It gapped up, came back down, and then we can take a slightly longer term, 4-hour view. It kind of popped up, came down, shook everybody around, and then really ended up more or less where it started, which is an interesting observation in any case. And with this, and I call it Economic Calendar Plus because you can do so much analysis, particularly if you're a news trader, on how news was impacted on previous news announcements. And I'm just looking at ISM, but it's the same for any instruments that you might be looking at. So familiarize yourself with it. It's absolutely free, and I think it's quite powerful, particularly if you trade news. Not only if you want to trade the news itself, but also if you want to keep out of news. Is the news, if you're in a current position, is the news coming out today? Will that affect your decision making in terms of moving stops, targets, or even exiting trades? So I use this a lot, purely for seeing how previous impacts happened, and I think you all benefit from that. I'll come back to trading eyes and trading views in a second, but I want to go to charts because I know a lot of you come here for the charts, and we can do some analysis, and obviously I'll take questions. I think we did some analysis on oil. I can't remember if it was last Thursday or Tuesday. These are regular Tuesday and Thursday webinars. And we talked about the breakout from this consolidation, where it could go and where it could go thereafter. We did a top-down approach on this, and I don't know if any of you followed this, but it kind of pretty well did exactly what we thought it would do. It's definitely in an upward. So let's just look at this is the 4-hourly chart. So let's just see, for a period of time it was consolidating, bit of a false breakout to get the breakout traders to lose their positions. Had the retest, which is my favorite trade, breakout of a range, retest onto the next level. Very, very straightforward, no indicators, no moving averages. We're just focusing on price. As I said, any questions on that, please don't hesitate. We'll have a look at gold as well. And let's see. So the 3 instruments I'm really going to focus on is gold. We just had a quick look at oil. Okay, so maybe I'll finish off with oil before we go much further. So this is from a 4-hourly perspective. It retested this consolidation area, bounced into this range here, and now we're stuck in this in range. Now that I can update this box a little bit, we can see here that we need a breakout from this this consolidation area, either on the upside or downside. We'll be looking for signs and signals in terms of which direction it potentially goes. Let's go back to gold. We've been looking at gold for the whole of July, and we've it follows a very I don't want to use the word predicted patterns, but it's much easier to read because gold is a very highly traded instrument, and you can, all these lines are being respected, and these have been drawn, quite some time ago, and yet they're still observing these turning points, these break of support back into zones and what have you. So what I might do is, let me start with a new chart. I'll leave this chart so it kind of has all the lines still left in there. So let's just do a top down from gold right from the very beginning, just to show you, those of you who are new to this today. I'm just going to start from the weekly. You'll be familiar. And, the great thing about doing this over and over again, let me get rid of some of these areas here. You'll be familiar with why I picked this line, not this line. And, again, just to reiterate the approach, what we're trying to do is frame the market from highs and lows from a weekly perspective, more to see what happens when we approach them. And the reason why I do them every time I look at the charts is because, new pattern, new areas, new things that may appear, which may change our view or give us indeed opportunities. So I'm looking at the daily now, and I'm going to start plotting in my daily support and resistance lines. And from a daily perspective, last few days we hit this resistance, which we had marked out on our previous charts, literally bounced off it, came back down to a level of support, which is where we are now. And now we're kind of in this range here from a daily perspective. So what we can then start doing is going to the 4-hourly, and with our guidelines, our frame, if you like, we can start looking at what is happening right now and how we can find our potential trading opportunities. And I think I'll just double check. Yeah, let's just go back to today's on the 4-hourly. What are we seeing, right? So we see that it rejected this level of resistance. Let me put the cursor on. We had this 1984 level. couldn't quite reach, and then it broke down, came back to really these levels of support here on the smaller time frames, right? So let's see where we are now. We kind of, for the last day or so, hit another peak and now coming down. So is what we're seeing a breakdown of this channel? Remember, these are the only tools I use. You know, is there a breakdown of a channel here? I'm going to remove this channel because it didn't respect it here. So there's not 2 points on this channel for me to kind of look at bouncing back up here. So I'm going to get rid of that because I don't see the channel being respected. So what are we seeing? It's creating from an hourly perspective. So when we start getting to an hourly perspective, we're really looking for short-term trades, right? So let me get rid of that. So we can see here that these are the turning points, which I'm just marking up now. And those of you who follow the way I do analysis, we can determine our trend just by drawing these here, right? So sometimes when you see up and down lines, it's difficult to get, am I in an uptrend or downtrend? From an hourly perspective, we can see, although I did try to draw a channel here, just draw that here. It wasn't really respecting this channel. And what I need to happen is for price to break this level here, for me to decide whether this upward move, this upward trend has indeed stopped. Has this upward, I can't call this a channel anymore because it's not a channel, because it's expanding, right? Even if I do this, right, we can see that it's expanding. And what that's really telling us is that the volatility from an hourly perspective, do remember, it's increasing. And now the key area that we need to look for before we determine our trade, I need to see if this is going to get broken, or this is going to get broken, or this is going to get broken, for me to change my mind in looking for an upward direction, right? Even though it's broken the channel here. Remember, we're trying to draw a upward channel here, it broke. But what we're seeing is that this key level here, and let me draw a little box around it so you can see what I'm talking about. We can see this is now going to be a key area for us. Why is it a key area? Well, it's consolidated and broke out from this range here. Broke the high, the previous high, maintaining our upward momentum, right? It couldn't get past this point here. So now we're really just focusing on the hourly perspective. I mean, if I go back to the 4 hourly, right? So this is really bouncing between these two 1984 and 1942 levels. And again, even the 4 hourly is showing the key level here that we need to maintain. Is this going to bounce off this level here and continue its journey back up to here? Or is it going to break down? Let me go back to the hour. Or is it going to break down and hit this previous level of support? So from a trading perspective, I need to watch now to see how this price action behaves. We've identified this area here, right? So we've identified that when it came down previously, it moved away rapidly from this orange highlight that I've got here. So watching that, it broke out. I'm just going to see if I can capture a lot of that price action here, right? So for that period of time, it broke out, broke these previous highs, and now it's coming to retest where it started from, right? So clearly this has to be an interesting level for us to determine whether price is now going to reject this consolidation area and continue going up to the top of this range here. Let me just make sure. Are we going to watch? We're going to watch this to see if our trade, and if it does show any signs of strength or rejection from this area here, then we're looking really to break these highs and break these highs and, you know, hit this level of resistance. So there's a nice trade there, but before we can take that trade, we actually have to make sure that this is being indeed rejected. The reason why we've marked this out is because this is where the breakout happened quite forcefully, hit a level, came back down, and now it's back to this level here. So I want to know now, or I will be watching this to determine whether it's going to continue going down, retest this level here. And if it doesn't, right, if strength prevails from this area here, then this is going to be a really great spot to put a stop loss, because what we're saying is that this upward momentum is going to continue, or it's going to start back from the origination of where it started before. And so the two potential trading opportunities here, you know, is there a rejection from here, or is there going to be a breakdown from here? You know, and if there's a breakdown, it means this whole move now is invalid, and it will come back and retest these levels here. Right, so if I just draw another orange box. So we had some consolidation here. Oops, sorry, I just moved the wrong thing. Right, so as price came down, it smacked this level here, and for a period of time, it maintained that position, broke out. Remember our favorite trade, breakout of consolidation, hit the retest, and really it hasn't come back to this level again. So again, what we're trying to identify is key levels, key areas to help us determine whether the momentum is still on the upside, or is this indeed a breakdown of this trend really from, you know, the 27th of July. It's been going, cycling up, right, creating higher highs, higher lows, right? We've been observing those. Now we're coming back to retest that. So clearly today we need to watch what happens around this. If I just magnify this a little bit, and start making these lines a little bit more accurate. So this is the consolidation. It's a higher low, meaning it didn't come back down to here. It shot through this level here, right? And hit a level of resistance. So I do need to mark that level. And this is for short-term trading, by the way. So this level here now, from an hourly perspective, is some resistance, right? So what we want to see is, and I'm just going to go back to bars. Okay, so these are all weak candles, right? They're all, for the last 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, it's been selling off. It broke through this little sort of pause, right? So this is another area we need to watch out for, because effectively markets sold off, paused, went back up, broke through that, now is heading back into this area. So what we need to do, if you're looking to play gold, is to see what happens at this orange area here. On the upside, for example, if we find that price rejects this, because remember, this is an hourly candle, we're 19 minutes in, we want to see how this candle closes. Is it going to continue to be weak, or is it going to find some sort of bounce off this level here? And if it's a bounce, then we're looking to go long, bearing in mind that we may have to put some trade management in terms of break-evens and first targets and second targets at these levels here. Now, let me put the cursor so you can see them. So the key areas that we have to break for a continuation up in the upward direction is this level here and this level here. Let me just Let me just mark this out in a different color. Maybe I won't put a different color, it just confuses. So look, the reason why I'm looking at this is because this is exactly where prices paused, tried to go up, but couldn't go up. Broke through this, and now we're at this level here. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to understand how these individual price bars are giving us valuable information in terms of, is it going to bounce off this consolidation area? Remember, I said it in my previous videos, whenever you get out, whenever you break out of consolidation, often it will come and retest it, sometimes straight away, sometimes after a period of time. So for me, this is a key area. And obviously, I'm not going to take any trades until I decide that this is a rejection of this area or it's a breakdown. Remember, when we talked about the breakdown, we said that this whole move now is, I won't say invalid, but what it's doing by retesting this areas here, it's shaking out really all the people that have stops here. So when we talk about liquidity, right, we talk about the trading psychology or the trading mentality is that stops will be placed here, here, and are these stops going to get run? So we're definitely going to get some ideas on what happens. And again, sometimes it will just break through here, gather up the liquidity, and then continue on its path up. Or conversely, if it just plunges through and then starts heading for this, then we are definitely looking for a retest of this area here. Are there any questions on sort of gold before I move on to the next? Do feel free to ask, but that's my analysis, how gold will move in the short term, right? It will either reject this level here and continue up to this direction here, finding some pauses at these three levels, or it's going to sweep up this liquidity and target this liquidity. And if this holds, then that will be another potential buying opportunity. But to be honest with you, if it breaks this and this, I've got to reevaluate. I'll be then looking for shorts underneath this orange shaded area here. And I'll be looking for a breakdown, retest, and then come back up again. Right, I think we've done enough for gold. Let's have a quick look at the euro because we've got some news coming up. So let's just see how, what reaction we might get from the news. So this is the euro dollar on a daily perspective. I think we analyzed it a short time ago because we've got all these lines. Let me start top down from euro again. I'll leave these lines in because sometimes it's good to go back and see how our analysis played out. Let's get rid of all the bits and pieces here. Right, so here we have, from a daily perspective, I'll just zip into the weekly just to see if there are other areas here. Look, so this is a gap, right? Always interesting to use gaps, or I mark out gaps. So this is a gap here. The whole move, it came back and filled this gap. That's a whole nother topic, which we can talk about. Let me see if there's any more questions. Can we better trade with order block, with market respect also? Yeah, I guess you're talking about order blocks, with the new sort of ICT type of approaches, order blocks. I tend to just use the tools that work with me. They sometimes, and I kind of don't pay too much attention, but they're often at support and resistance levels. So I kind of focus, I understand what happens at key support and resistance levels, and I play the retest on those. Sometimes they coincide with other areas. So for me, these areas of turning points are very valuable and interesting to me. And by the way, what's your question about gold or just generally speaking? I'll continue with euro while you type an answer. So I'm looking at euro, fill the gap, nice trade down. Remember this from a weekly perspective, so it's really going way some. But look how, even using a weekly chart, how it's respected and how it rejected on a daily perspective. And that's why it's important, crucial in many ways, that when you open up your chart, you're not just looking at the chart, you're looking at all the different time frames into your charts. And whilst you may not touch weekly levels, for a long period of time, having them in there is going to be important to you, because when you do approach them, and you will approach them, you'll have them there automatically, and you won't think to yourself after the fact, oh, I wish I'd drawn my weekly perspective in. Yeah, so it's a general question about order blocks. Yeah, for me, obviously a lot of buzz around that kind of technique, but to be honest with you, I don't think it's that dissimilar to straightforward. And I don't want to be controversial, each to his own. Whatever anybody wants to do, that's their own thing. All I can really teach you is what I've been using over and over again. I don't have any new methods. I don't have any new ways. It's just the same old way. And the reason why it's the same old way is because it works for me. Whether it works for everybody, that's a whole different story. Just like any trading strategy, one person can make money at it, another person doesn't. Why is that? Well, if I knew the answer to that, I would tell you, but I don't. It's a lot to do with psychology, a lot to do with how your mind and psychology is working. Again, that's another whole topic. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing a rejection from a weekly gap fill going back quite some time, right? And it's done a rejection bar here. Where is this going to come down to for us to be still convinced there's an upward direction? So from a daily, let's draw some more support and resistance lines. Look, so it's rejected, 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 right? So it came to this rejection point here, bounced off it, hit the bottom of this weekly gap fill, and now is heading down, right? So where is it going to come down to? Is this whole area now going to be a catalyst for it to come and retest these levels here? Level here. Sorry about my drawing, but Meta doesn't have the best drawing tools. So again, I'm doing exactly the same thing. Right, I'm looking to see if this channel is respected, and now at a point here where we're looking to see, whoops, let me get rid of that. We're looking to see if, and I will draw a orange shaded area here, because this is important. Why? This is important because as price sold off, right, they bounced off a previous level of resistance, came back into this area and rejected it, right? And that's important from a daily perspective. Now what we really want to see is, now I'll go to the smaller time frames. So can you see, just by using, I don't want to use the word simple, but just drawing these top-down approach, it will keep you from, ignoring what is actually happening. What I mean by ignoring, I mean referencing these important levels that if you don't do the weekly, daily downward approach, you're going to miss. If we didn't draw that weekly in there, we wouldn't know why it turned here. But I know exactly why it turned here. It filled a weekly gap. It's rejected it, rejected it, rejected it. So we know now this is a level of resistance, right? Even though we'd have to go way back to even draw that in there. So I would encourage everyone, not just to get focused in the, the 5 minute, the 1 minute chart and what have you. You need to know what is happening from a longer term perspective, right? So what I've done here, I'm marking out an area. So we've got news coming up in about half an hour. And what is our dialogue between us? Is this upward trend going to continue, or are we now, from a 4-hourly perspective, as a result of that gap fill, looking at a downward channel, right? Because what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to establish first, am I going to go up or down? But even in that dialogue, I have to have a perspective on both, right? What happens if this happens? I go long. If this happens, I go short. If I go long or short, how far could it go before it meets more resistance? Am I in a and that's the dialogue that I'd like you to start developing and practicing, because if you couple all these things together, long-term perspective, drill down to smaller time frames, drill down to turning points in smaller time frames, you'll start seeing trades very easily. You'll no longer have that paralysis of, is it going up or down? Because you're using all the time frames to build a frame, build a picture. And now that we're on the 4 hourly, we can see here, this area here where it bounced off, hit its head in that weekly gap fill, came back down, and why did it turn here, right? This is what we have to try to discover. Is this area here, this consolidation area, it's not much of a consolidation area here because it is quite wide, but if we see markets continue to go up and down here, then we'll be looking for a breakout and a retest out of this area here, right? So if I now go to an hourly perspective, because we're going to have news coming up in literally half an hour's time, and we can see here that it's backing into this level here. So let me just now tidy up this this area here, because now what we're seeing is, right, more information. We're seeing more information regards that it came down, hit this level, and look, it came back, retest. So clearly, right, this is an important level. Came down to it, bounced off it, smashed through it, rejected. So this level of support is now turned into resistance. So for us, any long trade has to break through this level here. On the short side, right, what are we looking at here? We're looking at levels here. Let's draw some of these 4 hourly levels of support and resistance. Very simple. Support, broke out of this consolidation area. And if I just draw that in there, I do apologize if I'm drawing too many lines and what have you, but they all make sense. They're all there for a reason, right? And the reason is that I'm trying to capture why prices turn here, why they turn here, why they turn here, why they turn here, turn here, turn here. So I'm always asking myself the question, why did it turn here? And once I discover the answer, why it turned here, then I can start building an idea on how I want to take the breakout, regardless of what time frame you're trading. So if I now go to the hourly perspective, although this looks like lots of shaded areas, they're giving me a very clear picture in terms of how I want to play out the breakouts. And let's now, and I apologize if I've drawn too many, but I can see exactly what needs to be done here. So this level here is a major level of resistance, right? And this is the newer level of consolidation, which I need to figure out if it's going to break down and break through these levels here, or it's going to bounce and come back and retest these. I mean, like there's about 80 pips from here, and from here to here. Let's see, the breakout of this area, depending on where we get it, it's almost at 90 pips here. So we've got plenty of room to try to make some profits out of this area here. But what we don't know at the moment, because of news, is the breakout going to be on the downside or the upside? But what we have done, we've marked out all the areas where there may be levels where we need to be careful of. Careful of meaning, is this downward channel going to reject here and go back into this area here? Is, this level here, I mean, there's nothing really stopping it from going all the way back up to the top, to be honest with you. The way I see this is if we break this, there's nothing to stop us coming back into this area here, to the top of the channel, maybe a bit before. So hopefully I'm passing on to you, the way I look at things, and I keep repeating this, but I repeat it because I keep getting asked the same question: which MACD to use, which, what the settings are. I don't have any. I don't have any moving averages or oscillators or anything really else, because price is telling you exactly what it's doing, right? And if you can start learning, and really, let me try to put it a different way. You're on a path, right? And if it's up or down, let's say your path is a buy. What you want to see is, in your journey upwards, what are the levels that are going to stop you? What are the brick walls? What are the soft walls? What are the barriers, right? So what you want to try to do is say, well, okay, I've got a signal or an idea that this is going to go up. But what is going against my idea of it going up, right? Is it the top of this channel? Is it this weekly gap fill? Is it this last time there was support? So all these questions have to be answered before you just jump in and say, okay, my signal says buy here, right? Useless. If you get signal service to just say, look, buy here, sell here, completely pointless and useless. You've got to kind of determine that once you're on this car going up, what are the hurdles that I have to avoid to get to my destination? My destination, let's say, for example, is here, or it's here on the downside. What are my obstructions? And those obstructions can either be, brick wall that, that you can't get past, or they're just going to be, you just burst straight through them, right? And all that information is important, because you can then say, okay, there's a continuation here. Is this downward trend? If I just go back on the daily, although it looks like a lot of drawing objects on there, there's a very clear path to go up or down. I know exactly what I'm going to be doing. Obviously, subject to news coming out. News can sometimes kind of distort a particular direction, because no sooner, and we've seen this on the economic calendar, price moves in one direction and it moves in the complete opposite direction. And there are lots of reasons for that, which I won't go into here. But essentially, once you understand those reasons, you can start defining and determining direction based upon important key announcements. So that's really my sort of analysis. I'm just going to go back up to, is there any questions, by the way, before I wrap this up? I won't have time now to look at the trading ideas, because I think most of you benefit from, real-time analysis, what is happening right now, what is like to happen, right? So we've kind of talked through what I think is going to happen on euro dollar and on gold, right? We're coming up to these key levels on gold. We have an idea, if there's a rejection, where we're going to go to, where our obstructions are. If there's a breakdown, we know where the stops are going to be hit, and then we can start looking at, other obstructions on the downside. I hope this was helpful to you, and I'll just re-put the URL for the tools. There are videos on how to use these tools. So although I haven't covered them much today, because we focus on the euro and gold, there are videos on how to use these tools, and they can be very beneficial in terms of your understanding. Right, I'm just going to wait one more minute before, if there's any more questions, and then we can call it a day and come back on Thursday, and see what actually happened as a result of our analysis. If there's nothing else, I wish you a good day, and I'll see you guys on Thursday.